Pilate's enormous life and death power should shape how we read the gospel narratives of Jesus' crucifixion. Pilate is not a neutral or weak or minor character. He is not forced to crucify Jesus by the Jerusalem leaders against his will. He crucifies Jesus because it is in Rome's interests to do so, interests he is charged with protecting and furthering. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we'd love for you to join our growing community of Christians and historians by subscribing for free. Don't forget to check out our website at www.historyguy.com for more great content. Plus, we're now on Facebook with a page named History Guy. Let's connect there and keep sharing the good news together. Now let's get back to the issue at hand. Introduction: the mystery behind Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate is a name that echoes through history, often remembered as the Roman governor who sentenced Jesus to death. But his story is much more than just the moment when he washed his hands during the trial of Christ. Who was Pontius Pilate, really? Was he a weak leader trapped by circumstances, or a shrewd politician balancing the demands of Rome and the restless province of Judea? As we peel back the layers of Pilate's life, we discover a man caught in a web of power, politics, and culture clash. His actions shaped the future of an entire region, and whether he meant to or not, Pilate became part of one of the most significant events in human history. This is the untold story of Pontius Pilate, the man who killed Jesus. Chapter 1. Early life. Before the Roman governor's seat. The early life of Pontius Pilate is like a puzzle with many missing pieces. Historical records about his upbringing are scarce, but we know a few things that help paint a picture of where he came from and how he rose to power. Pontius Pilate was born into a world that valued strength, discipline, and loyalty to the Roman Empire. He was likely raised in Italy, although some suggest he might have come from somewhere else in the Roman provinces, such as Spain or Gaul. His name, Pontius, connects him to an ancient and possibly noble Roman family, the Pontii. Growing up in the Roman world meant Pilate would have been trained to think like a soldier and a politician from an early age. In ancient Rome, young men of Pilate's status would often start their careers in the military. Pilate was no exception. He probably served as an officer in the Roman army, gaining valuable experience in commanding men and understanding the complexities of Roman rule in foreign lands. Pilate's military background would have prepared him for the challenges he would later face in Judea, a region constantly on the verge of rebellion. In Roman society, climbing the ranks of power wasn't just about being skilled. You needed connections and the favor of powerful people. Pilate likely had friends in high places, helping him move up the ladder. After his military service, Pilate's ambitions probably turned toward politics, and his eye was set on governing a province, a position of great power and responsibility in the Roman Empire. Pilate's big break came when he was appointed the prefect or governor of Judea around AD 26. This was no ordinary job. Judea was a small but important province on the eastern edge of the Roman Empire. It was a land rich in culture and religion, but it was also a place of constant tension between the Roman occupiers and the Jewish population. It wasn't just any Roman who could handle the job of governing Judea. Pilate was chosen because he had the toughness to deal with unrest, the political savvy to navigate tricky situations, and the ambition to keep moving upward in the Roman political system. But little did he know that this position would put him at the center of an event that would change the course of history. Chapter 2. Becoming a governor. What it meant in ancient Rome. Being a Roman governor came with great power and responsibility. For Pilate, being appointed as the prefect of Judea meant that he was trusted by the emperor to maintain Roman order in a province known for its religious and political challenges. Pilate's main duties were to keep peace in the region, enforce Roman laws, collect taxes, and make sure the local population didn't stir up trouble. However, governing a region like Judea was far from simple. The Jewish people had deep religious traditions, and many resented Roman rule. Pilate had to walk a fine line between enforcing Roman authority and respecting the delicate cultural balance of Judea. Judea was not like other Roman provinces. Its people held onto their religious beliefs fiercely, and many Jewish leaders saw Rome as a foreign invader. The Jewish temple in Jerusalem was the heart of their faith, and any attempt to undermine their religion could spark violent rebellion. Pilate quickly realized that ruling Judea wasn't going to be an easy task. He needed to assert Roman power while also trying to keep the local population from revolting. Over time, Pilate would face several controversies where his decisions would anger the Jewish population, sometimes leading to bloodshed. One of the earliest and most scathing accounts of Pilate comes from the Jewish philosopher Philo of Alexandria. Writing around AD 50, he castigated the prefect for his briberies, insults, robberies, outrages, and wanton injuries, executions without trial, constantly repeated ceaseless and supremely grievous cruelty. Philo summarizes Pilate's rule as corrupt and full of bribery, says Stephen J. Patterson, an early Christianity historian at Willamette University and the author of several books. In addition, he said, that sort of behavior wouldn't have been all that extraordinary for a Roman ruler, but Pilate apparently did it more ruthlessly than most. Problem is, it's not easy to know how historical Philo's account actually was, says Helen Bond, head of the University of Edinburgh's School of Divinity and author of Pontius Pilate in History and Interpretation. Philo is a hugely dramatic writer, she notes, and one with very clear biases. People who uphold Jewish laws are recorded in highly positive ways, while people who do not are described in highly negative terms. Given Pilate's opposition to Jewish law, Philo describes him very harshly. Philo also wrote that Pilate permitted a pair of gilded shields, inscribed with the name of the Roman Emperor Tiberius, into King Herod's former palace in Jerusalem, in violation of Jewish customs. Writing a half-century later, the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus told a similar tale that Pilate permitted troops carrying military standards bearing the likeness of the emperor into Jerusalem, although Jewish law forbade images in the city. A great crowd traveled to the Judean capital of Caesarea in protest and lay prostrate around Pilate's palace for 5 days until he relented. Josephus was born in Jerusalem the year Pilate left office, and so would have had reasonably good information, Bond says. The story has the ring of a new governor seeing what he can get away with and completely underestimating the strength of local opinion when it came to graven images. At the same time, Bond notes, the story shows his willingness to back down and respect public opinion. In another incident, with a bloodier ending, Josephus recounted that Pilate used funds from the temple treasury to build an aqueduct to Jerusalem. This time, when protesters amassed, Pilate dispatched plainclothes soldiers to infiltrate the crowd. On his signal, they removed clubs hidden in their garments and beat many of the protesters to death. Chapter 3. Life in Roman Judea, a land of conflict and rebellion. Imagine being in Pilate's shoes. On one side, he had to answer to the emperor back in Rome. The Roman government didn't care much about Jewish customs. They only wanted taxes paid and peace kept. But on the other side, Pilate had to deal with local Jewish leaders and a population deeply connected to their religious laws and customs. If Pilate pushed too hard, it could lead to open rebellion, and that would be bad news for his career. One of Pilate's biggest challenges was dealing with the Jewish religious leaders. The high priests in Jerusalem had a lot of influence over the people, and Pilate had to find ways to work with them. Sometimes this meant making compromises he wasn't comfortable with. Other times it meant using force to show who was in charge. This back-and-forth struggle between Roman law and Jewish traditions created tension that boiled over more than once during Pilate's time as governor. The shocking ending of Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate's career as the Roman prefect of Judea, which was forever marked by his role in the trial and crucifixion of Jesus, did not end in quiet retirement. According to historical sources, including the early Christian historian Eusebius, Pilate faced severe consequences for his actions as a governor, culminating in his recall to Rome and, ultimately, his demise. After the crucifixion of Jesus, Pilate continued to govern Judea for several more years, yet his harsh methods and frequent conflicts with the Jewish population did not go unnoticed by Roman authorities. The final straw came around AD 36, when Pilate ordered the brutal suppression of a Samaritan uprising. The Samaritans, known for their religious distinctiveness from mainstream Judaism, had gathered at Mount Gerizim under the leadership of a prophet who claimed to have discovered sacred artifacts. Pilate, interpreting this as yet another potential source of unrest, ordered his forces to slaughter the Samaritans. The action was perceived as excessive, even by Roman standards, and led to complaints being filed with the governor of Syria, Vitellius. Vitellius, seeing an opportunity to stabilize the region, ordered Pilate's recall to Rome to answer for his mismanagement. Eusebius, in his famous work Ecclesiastical History, picks up the narrative from here. According to him, Pilate never regained his position of authority. Instead, he arrived in Rome to find Emperor Tiberius in failing health. Soon after, Tiberius died, and his successor, Caligula, ascended to the imperial throne. Caligula's reign was marked by erratic and violent behavior, and Pilate, with his track record of inciting unrest in Judea, found himself out of favor with the new emperor. Eusebius writes that Pilate eventually fell into disgrace and in the end took his own life. The exact circumstances surrounding Pilate's death remain unclear, but Eusebius suggests that it was driven by despair and the weight of his political failures. Pilate had once been a man of power, responsible for maintaining Roman authority in a volatile region, but in the end he was a disgraced official who could not escape the consequences of his actions. Now, why should we accept Eusebius's account? The account of Pilate's fate, as presented by Eusebius, carries considerable weight. Eusebius of Caesarea is often called the father of church history, due to his comprehensive chronicling of early Christianity. Writing in the early 4th century, Eusebius had access to a wealth of historical and ecclesiastical records,